doing today? I am Chris Dunham. This is Charlie Hamilton, and this is the Bluegrass Soccer Academy. Well, today we're going to have a little bit of fun. And
very excited.
We've discussed this a little bit, and if any listeners have any ideas, throw them at us. But we're going to talk about ideas to change the game, to either make it better, to make it more interesting, maybe to bring more goals. But it could be a rule, it could be just a gameplay idea, but some ideas of, let's make our game a little more interesting. So I think we can have a lot of fun with this. Definitely. And some debates. And I think if anybody listening has any ideas, please shoot us some messages on what your ideas are. But
I think soccer catches a bad rap sometimes because it's boring, it's 0-0, and things like that. But first, I'd like to point out, if really football is like 3-2, they just give a bunch of 3 points.
That is true.
Very but
true. They also have multiple ways to score points, so
correct.
That's
which we'll get to in a little bit.
We will get to that.
But I do think there are some ways. Maybe improve the game's not the right word, but might make the game a little more enticing, a little more fun for the average fan.
Absolutely.
I
grab
think,
some new fans to enjoy watching the game.
I think, the diehards like you and I and, a lot of our friends, we're not going anywhere. We love the game for what it is, but we also know that there could be some things that we could have some fun with, and there are some things that, we need to progress in and the game does need to improve.
Sure. Well, I'm going to put the ball in your court here. What's your first rule change, gameplay idea? What have you got for me?
All right, so a little background. We each made a list of 5 rule changes.
True.
That we want to share. And the first one that popped to my mind, and this one's fun because I know Dunham and I disagree on it pretty wholeheartedly. But I think you should be allowed one timeout in a soccer game. I think there are, just like in any sport, there are moments when, as a coach, you need to regroup, you need to make a change, maybe there's a red card, maybe there's an injury, but maybe you're up 3-0, and then all of a sudden it's 3-2, and you need to, we need to regroup, we need to focus, we need to get back to what we were doing. And I think having one timeout a game, I'm not even talking about a half, I'm not talking about multiple timeouts, one timeout a game to be allowed to bring your players over and regroup, I think would be a fun addition to the game.
The idea is interesting. I can't say it's not, but one of the things that drives me crazy about some of the other leagues, whether it be NBA, NFL, and whatever it is, I feel like there's always someone in a timeout. And they get multiple timeouts per game, and it just drives me insane. So if you're saying one timeout for your entire game, I guess I could go along with it, but there's a part of me that says, you know what? That's the great thing about soccer. You either get the job done or you just go home losing.
Okay, but picture this. You are 90 seconds left in the game. You've earned a corner. How awesome would it be for some of these great managers and coaches to be able to call a timeout and draw up a corner kick play? Now we're pulling goalies and now we're putting in outside backs. I think in situations like that, having that timeout when you need a goal late or need to make an adjustment. But in this example, you need a goal late. I think having that one timeout in your back pocket would be a lot of fun.
There's no question it'd be interesting. And there are managers who would love having that timeout in that exact situation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You're playing your arch rival, whoever it may be, U.S. versus Mexico. And U.S. is down 3-2, just like you said. You got 90 seconds to go. Sure. But what are the ins and outs of that? Can you substitute during your timeout?
Absolutely, yeah.
You just throw it out there real quick?
Absolutely. I can put my tallest player in on the final corner
I'm putting
kick.
in every 6'5" player I've got left on my last corner kick. Personally, I would say I'm against the timeout rule. I don't know that it really helps the game. And I don't know that really even makes the game more enticing or interesting. But I think, just like you said, when there's 2 minutes to go in the game, things aren't going your way, you need a goal to tie it up, or you need a goal to win the game in the championship, it could come in handy.
Okay, so what if I amended my timeout rule?
Okay.
And said a timeout you're allowed one timeout in the final 5 minutes of either half in a 1-goal game. So now you go back to your 2-3 USA versus Mexico. USA earns a corner. You're down by a goal. Now, as a manager, you are allowed to take a timeout.
I feel like I'm in law class having to know different scenarios of what I can and can't do. What can I object to?
That's fair.
I mean, a timeout's a timeout. I don't know. I mean, I agree. There are times where a timeout will be beneficial. There's no question about it. But is it really going to change the outcome? We don't know.
Right. Yeah.
But it's an interesting concept.
All right. I love your first one that you have written down. Go ahead.
Yeah. You know, one of the reasons a lot of people don't watch the game is there's not enough goals. So let's make it a bigger goal.
Yeah.
I think the width is reasonably fine. I don't see any issues. If you want to make it, it won't be by much. But let's raise the crossbar by a minimum of 6 inches up to a foot.
Okay.
And my reasoning behind that is how many crosses into the box, free kicks that's outside the 18, soar just over the crossbar. I mean, it skims the crossbar, or it pops the crossbar, comes back into play. How many of those would be goals by raising it 6 inches to a foot?
Yeah, I like that thought in theory. My only hesitation to that is, you don't want 7-6 games, right? Then it doesn't feel like it's soccer anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think with the way you see these goalkeepers now, especially on the men's side of things, that are 6'6".
They're giants.
And have these massive wingspans. I'm not showing you a very good example, but have these massive wingspans that are darn near impossible to score on strictly because of their size.
Right.
So I like the thought of keeping the width the same. Because, as you know, and as the coaches that are listening, and I'm sure as the players that are listening, how many times have we said, please find a corner? They will not get to the ball if you play it to a corner.
Right.
So I think the width is fine. But yeah, I think the thought of raising that crossbar by 6 inches, I think is very interesting.
We want more goals. Let's be honest here. 0-0 games, 1-0 games. You and I may find them entertaining,
right,
depending on the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you're not sure what the rules are, you want to see people scoring goals.
The average fan
wants to see goals. Nobody wants to go watch a game, regardless of what the sport is, and see no offensive points being brought up. Right. And I think about crosses into the box, corner kicks, free kicks, penalty kicks.
So let me ask you this. With your rule change here, are you raising it 6 inches at every level? So are you raising it at the U8 level? Are you raising it at the U11 level all the way through? Or are we just talking the professional game?
It's got to be universal. I don't like specific ages.
Yep, I agree.
Or only professionals. I think this is universal. And it may be, I don't want to say detrimental to the younger ages, but it may be more difficult for them to adjust to it because they're, growing at different rates. But they'll get used to it.
They will.
Goals are goals, but at the collegiate, high school, professional levels, I think you're going to see some better goals and more opportunities for people to, make the game more entertaining.
Absolutely. My second one, speaking of goals, goes back to overtime rules. I think another thing that bothers the average soccer fan is ties. People cannot stand it when we play 90 minutes plus stoppage time plus that little added time on some games not, depending on where we're playing, and the game ends 0-0 or 1-1.
Right.
So my second rule change is an adjustment to the overtime rules. I know you're a big fan of the golden goal, so I'll let you get back to that.
I love golden goal.
But my thought is...
Let me interrupt you there real quick. For any of our listeners that may be new to the game, golden goal means in overtime, if you score a goal, the game is over. There is no 15 minutes to 15 minutes, and you play that no matter what.
Yeah, so like now, if you go into extra time, overtime, you play an extra 30 minutes no matter what. It doesn't matter if I score 2 goals and you score 1 goal. We're going to play that 30 minutes.
Right.
Golden goal several years ago was you score, you win. Over. In that moment. Which does create a lot more suspense. So, for me in the overtime rules, I would stick with my... kind of gone back and forth on this since you and I spoke about it, but I think I would stick with my 5 minutes in 5-minute increments. But my overtime rule is every 5 minutes, you have to bring 2 players off the field. So now all of a sudden, you're 9v9 in that first 5. And, then that second 5 on that massive field, we're looking at a 7v7 soccer game. And then that gets into so much strategy from the manager. Maybe we find out how good these managers really are in those moments where, okay, now I have to take off 2 more. Am I going to take off a striker and a midfielder and play defensive heavy? Or am I taking off my 2 outside backs and saying, all right, everybody get forward, we're ending this?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to play with this. And, are you doing 5 minutes universally?
Right.
Like I said before, I love golden goal. I can't stand the current concept of we're playing 30 minutes. It doesn't matter how many goals are scored. We're playing the full 30 minutes. What player doesn't want to be that guy that scores the winning goal and ends the game, wins the championship, walks off into the sunset? Everybody loves it. And I think there's a lot of ways to play with this. The idea of, forget about golden goal for a second, but taking players off the field to every round of overtime is very enticing, I think.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This is what hockey does, correct? You're kind of
So I believe hockey goes 4v4, and they'll play 1 period. And at the end of that period, in playoffs, I believe, they play 1 period and they go to shootouts. I think right now, during the regular season, they go straight to a penalty shootout.
Okay.
But yeah, they are known to go to 4v4.
Yeah. And if you wanted to say, okay, in that first 5 minutes of golden goal, we're playing 11v11. We're going to keep everything the same. In that first 5 minutes of golden goal, we're going to play soccer. But then after that, people want a winner. And
yes.
And, this kind of leads us into not a rule change that either one of us wrote down, but that whole conversation of ending the game on penalty kicks.
We talked about this earlier. We see it a lot where one team dominated an entire game. They're just the better team. They had a better concept, better game plan, but they couldn't finish. And the game goes into PKs, and the team that didn't do anything ends up winning the game because bad penalties were taken. They had a better keeper. But
I mean, there are teams, and you and I have both played against teams, and everyone has watched games where it is very clear that one team is playing
100%
for the penalty kicks.
Yeah.
Hey, we want to get you to penalty kicks, and we're gonna give a shot. We're gonna take a shot at it there.
I agree. Yeah, this is an interesting concept, and I think we both agree overtime can be re-looked at.
Yes, definitely.
I think it's nice. In tournaments, they're going to have overtime rules, but in regular season with leagues, they always have ties. And I think the idea of always having a winner, I don't think there's anything wrong with looking into that.
I agree.
So moving on, my number 2, and this could probably ruffle some feathers a little bit.
It ruffled mine.
This is a pretty drastic change, but I like this, is I want to shrink the size of the penalty box. I think it's fine, the height going up to the 18, but I want to shrink the width into the 6-yard box.
All right, so to be clear with the shrinking of this, not only are you shrinking the area in which a penalty kick is allowed to be, called and taken, you're also shrinking everything that goes in with that. So you're shrinking the size of which a goalkeeper can use their hands. You're shrinking, the size of where a goal kick is taking. So, correct, you're shrinking all of that, right?
Absolutely. My idea behind that is, and we've all seen this, penalty kicks that are given in areas where there is no goal-scoring opportunity, and it drives me crazy. We see it in tournaments. We see it in our professional leagues. We see it in all levels.
Yeah.
Youth, high school. I mean, it happens. A guy has his back to the goal, has no chance of scoring, and some soft foul happens, and he gets a shot to score a goal to put his team up 1 or 2-0.
I saw one of those games recently in the United States. Who did we put? Wales match right there at the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just like that, Gareth Bale's back to the goal. No goal-scoring opportunity was prevalent.
Right.
And they were given a chance to tie the game up. And it completely changed the outcome of the game, obviously.
Yeah, and not saying that it wasn't a foul. We're not saying that fouls shouldn't be called. But I think to your point is, okay, in order to earn a PK, it's going to have to be in this smaller area.
I'd rather be a foul that's in front of the goal. Yeah. I mean, even though Gareth Bale had no scoring opportunity, it was at least in front of the goal.
Correct.
And, when you see these fouls occur off to the far corner of the 18, because it is a large area of a penalty area. And we've seen fouls being called for questionable things, even with VAR, it's still questionable sometimes.
Absolutely.
The other thing I like about this is, the keeper doesn't have the opportunity to squash certain plays. He comes out of his goal line, but he's still in the box. He puts his hand on something. Well, now he has to use his feet. Yeah. And keepers today are better at using their feet. Well, let's make them use their feet in different areas. And so the other thing I like about this, if there is a penalty kick given, you've got guys on the top and on the sides now. That really changes a rebound opportunity.
Yeah, I think that aspect of it makes this a really fun rule change.
It would be interesting to see how managers organize their team in that kind of concept. So I know that idea ruffles a lot of feathers. I'm a traditionalist myself, but I want to get rid of penalties given on soft fouls.
Well, I'm actually going to skip down based on what we just talked about. I'm actually going to skip down to my 5th rule change.
Okay.
Because it goes hand in hand. What if we eliminate PKs altogether? No matter in the game, no matter where the foul is, everything becomes a direct kick. You get rid of that whole penalty kick aspect of the game.
I think this is really interesting because I like to see the stats on this. How many fouls actually occur inside the 6-yard box? Not very often, it seems like to me.
Right, and that's where my hesitation on this rule change comes in because you're allowed to request 10 yards. Well, if you're taking a free kick from the 6-yard box, what does that look like?
Right.
Do we back up to the goal line? Can I now take my timeout and put all my 11 people on the goal box to make sure you don't score?
Right.
So there are some question marks within this rule change, but I think eliminating all PKs does a couple things to truly help the game. And maybe the biggest is that it takes pressure off a referee.
That's very true.
It allows the referee to call the game, and especially at the high school level and the club level, where they don't feel like if I call this foul right now, I'm costing this other team the game.
Sure.
Whether it was a foul or not, a lot of times that whistle costs somebody a game.
Yeah.
And so now you relieve them of that pressure, and so now they're calling fouls when it's a foul. Because they know, hey, even if I call this foul at the 6-yard box, you're still going to have a chance to defend the goal.
Absolutely, yeah. Eliminating PKs, especially post-regulation time frame, I mean, we've seen PKs, just like we talked about, the team that dominated ends up losing the penalty shootout. I'd rather see them win a game playing the game,
correct,
rather than having some penalty shootout. But
absolutely,
like you said, there's a lot that goes into eliminating all PKs that would need to be looked into because it's a pretty drastic change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So moving on here, some of these may be kind of odd, but we're just kind of having fun with this. Just different ideas. So one thing that I kind of like this idea is no more throw-ins. If it goes over the end line, it's either a corner kick or it's a goal kick. It's always a kick. But if it goes off the touch line, it's a throw-in. Which, I mean, and I get it, but what if it was a kick-in?
Yeah.
That completely changes the amount of chances you have on scoring opportunities. Whether it be high school, collegiate, or pros, you've got some players that can put the ball in the box from beyond the half line, or maybe you got an intelligent manager that knows how to work a good game plan to work those kind of plays in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all of a sudden now, that that ball that goes out on the touchline at the 20 or 25-yard line,
right.
Now we treat it like a corner. Now it almost becomes a corner into the box. And again, we one of our biggest emphasis of a lot of these rule changes have been for the average soccer fan and making the game more enticing. And one of the things that we often hear is there's not many goals.
Right.
Well, this definitely creates more opportunities.
Way more opportunities. Absolutely.
And we're playing soccer. Why would we not have kick-ins? When you look at it in that portion of it, I think it makes sense. I think, why haven't we been doing this all along?
Right.
Why did it ever become a throw-in?
And I'm glad you brought that up because we can't use our hands anywhere on the field, but we can use our hands on a throw-in.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
It's unusual kind of rule.
Yep.
And I think if you put kick-ins in, you're going to see more goals.
Yeah, I really like that.
Forget changing the size of the goal. Getting more balls into the box is always going to give you more opportunities to score.
Yeah, I love that rule change. I really do.
Absolutely.
All right, my next one, you had your confrontational one with the shrink the penalty box. This is my confrontational one, and I know that this is going to get me in trouble with a lot of medical professionals and probably a lot of mamas, but I want everybody to hear me out on this. So I want to change the heading rule.
Let's be specific here. This is a U.S. United States rule. This is not like a FIFA rule.
Correct.
This is a United States rule here that he's about to give.
So the United States rule is there is absolutely no heading until you enter the U12 age group. I understand the thought process behind that. I understand the concerns and the theories and everything that goes with concussions and head injuries. And I'm not making light of that conversation. I think that is extremely important. But my look at it is that these kids start playing when they're 6 years old. So that means they're playing this game for 6 years, and then all of a sudden we're going, oh, hey, now use your head. And so they have no concept of how to do it. I mean, think about the player in your life that you know. How long does it take them to get that first touch? How long does it take them to obtain not using their toe when they kick the ball? It takes years. And so I think by moving the heading rule back to the U12 age provides opportunities for more head injuries, because these kids are now afraid to head the ball. They've not been taught anything about heading the ball, and now we're saying, go head it.
Yeah, and I giggled when you brought that up, because we have both coached varying ages. And even at the high school level, males and females, there are still some players at that age who are still terrified of heading the ball. Like, it's a solid rock coming at their face, but it's not that way.
Right.
And now I think we're making it more detrimental to the game of soccer here by making it no headers up until U12. I mean, just like you said, that's 6 years of soccer, of not understanding the proper technique, the proper form, the proper way to jump, land.
Right.
There's all different ways that you've got to understand how to do these head balls, and we're not going to teach that to their U12, which is basically ending middle school, going into high school seasons. I think that's going to be a big problem. Now, I don't know all the statistics about the concussions that have happened, but I don't know of anyone that's got a concussion from heading the ball. It's usually from headbutting somebody else,
Correct.
Which is understandable.
Yep.
But yeah, this one's a little frustrating for me as well. And I don't know. There's ways to present this different ways. We both see the medical side of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't like the rule.
I mean, I think, and this is really going to cause some people to get angry with me, but I think if you're not going to allow it into U12, why allow it at all? Why not completely remove it from the game?
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
I mean,
because now you're completely changing the game in the United States.
Absolutely.
Completely changing it.
But I think we're closer to moving to that than we are to what you and I is the more reasonable change of, hey, we're going to allow heading at the U6 age group, but you know what? We're going to really train our coaches on teaching those proper fundamentals of heading the ball. Just like that coach is responsible for, like I said, teaching your child not to toe the ball, teaching your child to use the inside of their foot when they're controlling a pass, things like that. Well, now your coach is also going to be in charge of setting up that first stage of learning how to head the ball.
Right.
All right, your turn.
Yeah, I agree. That's really going to upset some people, I think. And I think creating the rule upsets some people. But moving on here. My next rule here, I admit, it's a goof. And I expect everyone to completely laugh at it. I laughed at it when I said it out loud. But, in soccer, you have one way to score. It's putting in the back of the net. And you get 1 point. Well, why not look at a way to give a goal 2 points? Maybe
like a header.
Maybe a header, maybe. Or maybe you hit a goal from behind the half line. I'm not expecting there to be a 2-point advantage where people are just going for 2-pointers all day long. But if for some reason you hit a ball beyond the half line, why not give them 2 points for that?
And we often, or I shouldn't say we, I shouldn't group us all together, but I often, even when I am working on a skill in practice, say for instance, crossing the ball in, and then we go into the end of practice and we scrimmage, I will often award 2 points for any goal that's scored off of a cross, to encourage that teaching moment that we've been working on in all practice and our stages of the practice. But I think, I love that idea of, hey, let's create something that is worth 2 points.
Yeah, I don't want to hang on this one too much because I think we both agree it's a bit of a goofy rule that I don't think would ever get agreed upon by anybody, but it'd be interesting just to see other people's perspective of adding that into the rule book.
I love to see, to get some comments from the listeners, on this podcast when we post it. We'd love to read the comment section and hear your ideas.
Absolutely.
What is worth 2 goals in the game of soccer?
Absolutely. What do you got next?
All right, my final one, and I think this one, it's just a small tweak, but it involves everybody's favorite rule of offside.
Yes.
And so right now, the current rule is that any part of your body, any part of your body that you are allowed to score with is offside, you are offside.
Correct.
So that is the rule. So if I am even with the last offender, but my right foot is just a little bit past him and a ball is played to me, I'm offside.
Yes.
My rule change here is just to flip that. We have talked about let's score goals. Well, now let's flip that. What if the offside rule is you are onside as long as one part of your body is in the onside position? So now I'm flipping that rule completely. I know that's hard to visualize on podcast. It'd be easier if we had a drawing board, but I'm basically just taking the offside rule and I'm flipping it to where you're onside as long as one part of your body is onside, as opposed to you're offside if one part of your body is offside.
I actually like this rule. Offsides can be confusing and subjective to begin with, but when we talk about wanting more goals, this is really an easy rule change.
It really is.
Because you're not really changing anything except for the position that you're allowed to be onside. And you're not changing how referees look at things. You're not changing how the rule is called, except for it's just flipped around. Yeah. And I actually like this idea. I think it's very interesting, and it's going to put defenses on their toes a little bit more. Yeah. And I think it's going to give more offensive opportunities. Yeah. And like I said, it's going to give more chances for goals.
Yeah, I don't think it changes the fact that it's easier or harder to call for an official. I don't think it changes that aspect of the game, but it changes the goal scoring opportunity.
And I think that's what we want to get at. I actually kind of like that offside change there. My last one here kind of relates to something many of us may or may not do in the wintertime, but a lot of us play indoor. And an indoor, at least for the places I played at, have an interesting rule where they have some use a blue card, some use an orange card, where you get a temporary dismissal, whether it be a 2 minute or 4 minutes where one team is down and the other team is on, I guess you could say, a power play.
Right.
And I call it a third card temporary dismissal. So we have the red, you're gone permanent, yellow, you're cautioned. Well, let's bring out the blue card and say, well, you know what? That was a really bad foul, but I don't think you need to be ejected. So you're going to get 2 minutes on the sidelines, and the other team's going to have a man advantage for the next 2 minutes because of your irresponsibility on the field.
I love this rule. This is probably my favorite rule that you brought to the table tonight. I like it, and I think it's needed. You have those moments where, and again, I talked in the very first episode about my background a little bit, and I spent a lot of time on the soccer field as an official. And a red card just completely changes the game, especially if I give it to the best center mid or your best striker, whether they deserve it or not. When I pull out that red card, I have completely changed the game.
It's final.
And now as an official, if I know I can pull you to the side and go, hey, that was really bad. I'm sending you off for 4 minutes or 2 minutes. I think that has a lot of merit to it. Because now, soccer is the ultimate team game. And so now those blue cards are hurting your team. Because now you're playing at that man disadvantage for however long. My question with this rule to you is, since you're the rule change guy here, is would it be a generic, like, blue card is automatic 4 minute, blue card is automatic 10 minute? How would you make that look? Or would you leave that portion up to the referee's discretion as well?
Yeah, you've got to make it universal, and it needs to be from the pros all the way down, whoever implements the third card. And my thing would be it's either 2 minutes or 4 minutes, whatever works. I mean, it's a long game, but I don't want it to be where one team is up for, I think, 10 minutes that's beyond reasonable. So either 2 minutes or 4 minutes. I personally would go 2 minutes. But for me, you're really controlling tempers with this card. And we see tempers flare a lot, especially in rivalry type of games where you've got some kids that are kind of getting out of control. And when you throw that blue card in their face and you're off for 2 minutes, they've got 2 minutes to bring it down a notch. And their coach has 2 minutes to say, you do this again, you're probably out of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think it's a great way, and I've seen it in the indoor many times, it's a great way to control tempers before they get out of control.
And I think you could do a lot of things with it, like 2 yellows equal a red. I think, a blue and a yellow is red. I think, you can spin that a lot of different ways.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here. We have come up with 10 rule changes that we want to, that maybe not that we want to make, but we think would make the game, improve the game, or make the game a little more enticing, a little more fun. You can pick 3 right now to implement.
Pick 3. Well,
what
number 1
are you picking?
Out of yours, I love changing the overtime rules. I want to go back to golden goal. I'm ready to do that right now. I also like the concept of possibly, every 5-minute round or whatever it may be, taking somebody off the field and changing the game plan.
Right.
I think that's very enticing. The other one I'd really like to see is raising the crossbar. I want to see more goals. I don't want to completely change the game where, you've got different lines here. You've got different dimensions. But I think when you raise the crossbar, free kicks become different. Corner kicks become different. Balls into the box become different. I mean, it's really going to give you more opportunity to score goals. We love to see goals.
Absolutely.
The third one, this one's a little difficult. I'm kind of in between your offside rule and my third card rule. But if I would go with anything, I would say your offside rule because it doesn't completely alter how the game is played. You're just flipping a rule that's already in place.
Right.
And I think it'd be an easy adjustment for people to go along with.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you? What are you going with here?
I think my initial thought, as you kind of brought up, was the overtime rules, but that is not going to be one of my top 3 only because I can't give you an exact what that should look like. Because I don't know what that should look like exactly. We've thrown out some ideas of taking players off and things like that. So that's not going to be in my top 3. I think my first one is the offside rule change. I think that, as you mentioned, it's simple. It's not going to cause confusion within the game. So I think that would be my first one. I'm a big fan of your third card temporary dismissal. I think, especially at the youth and high school level.
Oh, high school, yeah.
I think that temporary dismissal would really clean up the game, for lack of a better term.
It should, at least.
It should, correct. And then my final one, and I know you kind of threw it out there, but I love the no throw-ins.
It's an interesting concept because, it's odd that we can't use our hands, but we can throw the ball in with our hands.
Yeah.
It's kind of a goofy thing that we have in soccer that really doesn't go along with the rest of our game.
Right, and it goes back to kind of what this whole conversation is centered around. Not all the rules, but most of them of scoring more goals, producing more goals. And I think that does that. And not only does it do that, but it fits more in with the game of soccer than what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I agree. Well, there you have it. There's our 10 rule changes, funny, goofy, or serious, however you may like it. If you agree or disagree with any of these, we'd love to hear from you. Send us a message and give us any of your ideas as well. But here, I think that's what we've got today. This has been Chris Dunham. That's Charlie Hamilton. And this has been the Bluegrass Soccer Academy. Thank you.